Scott asked me to uh, talk a little bit about inquiry projects, or I think what he's talking about 21st century learning projects, as he's calling them. And so, um, yeah, I'd love to share with you my experience with them and the great success I've had. So I've been teaching for about 16 years, and about 7 or 8 years into them, I started working with Scott, Mr. Hoffman, and he came up with this idea for having kids explore topics of interest to them and really dive into what it's like to take charge of your own learning. That learning can be something you start on your own and pursue areas of interest in a way that's exciting to you, and that learning can really be natural. Um, and not necessarily something an adult does to you, but something an adult does with you. And that's really at the core of why I love them. Couple years ago, excuse me, a couple years ago, I'm getting all choked up. I love them so much. A couple years ago, I taught at a school for gifted students, kindergarten through eighth grade, and worked with some fourth graders. And I brought Scott's idea to that teaching experience, and it was amazing. It was an amazing way to differentiate for any kid, but especially for that demographic. The gifted student is a student that has many passions and constantly changing interests. And this was a way to really harness some of that energy and teach a lot of what we needed to teach benchmark wise in a context, in a way that the students were in charge, and we were just guides along the way. And one of my favorite parts about it was, in the end, being able to invite parents and administrators and other teachers and classes in, and it was just so incredibly obvious that these kids owned their projects. There wasn't one project that was done by the parents where the kid is trying to explain their father's thinking. Or there wasn't one project where the kid wasn't excited about it. And the reason for that is that they were allowed to choose their own topic, and then they were allowed to present it in a way that made sense to them. I had a little student, little Sam, who wanted to learn about ham radios. So he built one from scratch, really leading his father out to hardware stores to find what he needed. And his dad was a co-learner. I remember Scott using that phrase a lot. And his dad was learning alongside him, and he was interested. He was co-interested and co-learning, but the actual learning, the energy that was needed for that project came from the kid. And so when it came time to share, there's Sam, had to have his project next to the window so he could run his antenna outside and up the side of the building. And he's tuning in, and he's got his own, I can't remember, his own call sign or something, and he's out there communicating with other people through this ham radio that he had created. And I think in education we get so caught up in trying to meet the benchmarks through pre-created curriculum that we neglect or we forget to save time for kids just to do what they do naturally, which is question and explore their world around them. And this was a way to really extend that and extend the time that we do that. I think it can die in education, or it can get pushed aside. And this let those kids continue to be like they were when they were toddlers, exploring the ground and the world around them a little longer, and really showed them that to be a lifelong learner, you're a self-starter. And it really, what was great, another fantastic outcome from this project was that when we'd finished the first year I did them at the end of the year. So unfortunately the kids got ramped up and excited about it, and then they left. Next year I learned from that and started them middle of the year. And when we finished, the kids were just absolutely dying to do their next one. And they were already thinking of ideas. They'd finished their first one, and they were ready to move on to their second one. And what was great is they left that year looking at the world differently, with a lot more curiosity, realizing that everything around them was a potential 21st century learning project just waiting to happen. And I think that's the power of these projects, is that they change the way kids see the world and the way kids think and the way they see learning. And kids during those projects came to school so excited and just ready to dive in. And all I had to do was step out of the way and make sure they didn't hurt themselves, and make sure we had enough glue sticks and enough computers and enough adults around to help them research and keep applauding from the sidelines. And they just took off with it and ran. And